gender into G20 discussions. India has promoted women-led development as distinct concept. Under women-led development, women are not just beneficiaries of development, instead they set the agenda for development. India's vision for women development has been wide-ranging, including enhancing of education, skilling, promoting women entrepreneurs, and women-led MSMEs. With this background, I invite our learned panelists to the dais, please. Ms. Shweta Agarwal, IAS, Additional District Magistrate, West Bengal. CS Preeti Malhotra, former President, ICSI. And our session moderator, CS Rupanjana Dey, Council Member, the ICSI, to please join the dais. I now request CS Rupanjana Dey, Council Member, the ICSI, to please welcome Ms. Shweta Agarwal, IAS, Additional District Magistrate, West Bengal, by presenting her a planter.
Ladies and gentlemen, taking you through the profile of Ms. Shweta Agarwal, IAS, Additional District Magistrate, West Bengal. She's the Additional District Magistrate, Purba Bardhaman. She was the Additional District Magistrate, Purba Medinpur, West Bengal. Prior to this, she worked as Additional District Magistrate, Land and Land Reforms, Dakshin Dinajpur. Then Joint Secretary, Department of Health and Family Welfare, Additional District Magistrate General, Birbhum, Subdivisional Officer and Subdivisional Magistrate, Rampur Hat, with additional charge of Executive Officer of Tarapet Rampur Hat, a Development Authority, and Officer on Special Duty in Department of Food Processing, Industries and Horticulture, Government of West Bengal. She has also worked as Strategy and Research Analyst in Deloitte, Mumbai. She is an Economics Honors Graduate and a PGDM in Finance. Thank you.
Welcome you, ma'am. I would now request CS Rupanjana Dey, Council Member, the ICSI, to please welcome CS Preeti Malhotra, former President, the ICSI, by presenting her a planter.
Ladies and gentlemen, CS Preeti Malhotra, past President, the ICSI. She's the chairman of Smart Bharat Group and has been instrumental in leading multiple joint ventures along with technology tie-ups of the Smart Group executed across diverse geographies globally. She has over 30 years of work experience in top leadership positions and was the first woman to be elected as a president of ICSI in the year 2007. She is an active contributor to various policy initiatives of the Government of India and independent director on the board of AGS Transact Technologies Limited. She's a law graduate, commerce honors graduate, and a fellow member of the Institute of Company Secretaries of India. She has also finished a study of exponential technologies that seek to address the world's greatest challenges with the executive program from Singularity University, Silicon Valley. Thank you.
Welcome, ma'am. I now request CS Rupanjana Dey, our moderator for the session, to please take forward.
I welcome all of you to the final day of the 51st National Convention of the Institute of Company Secretaries of India in the holy city of Varanasi. And we have been very fortunate to have a large gathering of company secretaries from all across India as well as the world in this particular edition of the National Convention. And today being the final day, it really gives us pleasure to see you all, to welcome you all again to the fourth technical session. CS Rupanjana Dey, Central Council member, and I welcome you to this session on women-led development, accelerated, inclusive, and resilient growth. We have two very eminent speakers, two luminaries who are going to shed light on their views on this particular topic. And they come with great experience in two different fields. So to start with, I would like to say a few words. India's G20 presidency stresses upon the need for an inclusive, ambitious, decisive, and action-oriented approach towards our common future in which women-led development is a key aspect. Undoubtedly, the G20 is rooting for the development of women across sectors, including science, technology, engineering, and maths. India's vision is well encapsulated in our Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji's remark at the G20 summit in Bali, Indonesia in 2020, and I quote, "Global development is not possible without women's participation." Women-led development represents a pivotal shift in the global landscape, heralding an era of accelerated, inclusive, and resilient growth. This paradigm underscores the transformative potential of women's participation and leadership in various sectors, transcending national the traditional gender roles and biases. It recognizes that women have unique perspectives, knowledge, and experiences that can help to address some of the most pressing development challenges. Women-led development has become the centerpiece of a sustainable and an inclusive growth in India, its businesses, and the communities. Empowering women politically, socially, and economically has been a significant policy objective of the Government of India. The government has taken extraordinary measures, including the Stand Up India, PM Mudra Yojana, Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao Yojana, Poshan Abhiyan, increasing the scope of entrepreneurship amongst women. India has more women-owned companies in the compared, not companies, women-owned enterprises compared to any other country around the world. And around 8.59 lakh women-led MSMEs were registered in financial year 2022 itself, up to March 28, 2022. So that's a like very big figure in comparison to 4.9 lakh registered in financial year 21. So apart from the Honorable President of India, many other women have been in the news recently. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, both of them were actually present, graced our Foundation Day event on 4th of October at Vigyan Bhavan, New Delhi. And then we have Biocon Executive Chairperson Kiran Majumdar-Shaw and Nykaa founder Falguni Nair. They were also among the 6 Indians who made it to the Forbes annual list of the world's 100 most powerful women. So 6 out of 100 is, for one country, is a good figure, I would say. Accelerated growth under the aegis of women signifies a departure from stagnant norms. Women, when given equal opportunities, drive economic dynamism and innovation. Their presence in leadership positions fosters diverse perspective and inclusive decision-making, expediting progress in previously untapped sectors. Inclusivity is at the heart of women-led development. This is also a part of the G20 objectives, and India holding the presidency of the G20. This becomes all the more important. By dismantling barriers to entry and challenging gender-biased discriminations, women's leadership ensures that all the segments of society benefit from growth. It paves the way for marginalized communities to participate actively in development processes, narrowing social disparities and fostering cohesion. Inclusive policies led to more robust, balanced, and just societies. The women are not only on the right path of self-development, but women have become leaders in development of the nation, and this is a really big achievement for the women and the country. It is a matter of satisfaction that women are not only developing themselves, but are becoming national and global catalysts in the development of the women, and thus performing leaders' roles in the development of the country. As we embark on the journey towards a more equitable and progressive world, recognizing women's indispensable role in accelerated growth, promoting inclusivity, and fostering resilience is not merely an option, it is an imperative for a sustainable and prosperous future. The theme of this fourth technical session explores the multifaceted dimensions of women-led development, emphasizing its role in propelling societies towards a more equitable, prosperous, and sustainable future. I am privileged to be moderating this particular session. I, being the only female council member of ICSI, Central Council member, I would definitely look forward to more, more women counterparts in future. And I'm so privileged to have CS Preeti Malhotra, who was the first. She has also the distinction of becoming the first female president of the ICSI. So I'm privileged to have her here, and of course, IAS Shweta Agarwal ji, who comes from my state only, of West Bengal. I've heard her, and on public demand, she has been, she has been invited to be a speaker here. So I'm really dying to hear both of you. To start with, I would request CS Preeti Malhotra ji to shed light on this particular topic. Ma'am, you can take 15 minutes time and enrich us with your take on this particular topic. Thank you so much.
Hello, hello. Hello? Yeah, it seems to work. Many thanks, CS Rupashna De, Council Member, the ICSI. Dignitaries on the dais, Ms. Shweta Agarwal, IAS, Additional District Magistrate, West Bengal, other dignitaries of the dais, dear friends. I thank ICSI and its president for inviting me for today's technical session on the theme Women-Led Development. You heard, during the G20 India presidency, women-led development has emerged as the new narrative, marking a critical shift from the focus on women's empowerment alone to women-led development. Women, rather than just being passive recipients, have to be catalysts of change and the architects of India's progress and development. Gender parity can only then become a reality, where women aren't just beneficiaries of development, but are setting the agenda as leaders and as equal participants. Now, it's actually important that the Brazil G20 presidency takes this forward and ensures that all these ideas actually get implemented. There is enough evidence today to support that this hypothesis is very useful, sustainable, and the power sharing not just benefits the society, but women's active participation becomes like life force multipliers. Because when women have access to resources, it's been seen that they invest in the education, in the health of families, communities, more than men, and consequently the communities prosper much more. As an example, we see because of the government push of promoting leadership at the grassroots level in political systems and governance, 49% of the panchayati leaders in India today are women. And in those areas, you see a definite improvement in health, education, nutrition, lesser early marriages, and overall the societies have become far more prosperous and progressive. So there is a multiplier effect on economies, and India can boost their GDP by up to 27% by raising women workforce participation. In fact, their underutilization, I would say, leads to massive loss to the economy. Therefore, there is a need to invest in education, health, skilling, digital literacy, and economic empowerment of women so that we can have this multiplier effect on the economy. Under the G20 presidency, focus areas included women's role in climate change, entrepreneurship, digital policy making, education, skilling, labor market participation, and very importantly, financial inclusion to make them equal stakeholders in development. They have also launched the Digital Inclusion Platform for Women both for learning, skilling, training, and also an online platform for mentoring and networking. So I think brilliant ideas, and really hope this gets actioned well, because this will empower women to have the courage to control their destiny, pursue their ambitions, pursue the careers of their choice, and consequently become bread earners and decision makers. But for that, there will have to be substantial institutional transformation. Changes in the policy, legal framework, and most importantly, societal behavioral changes. We can't be reactive, we have to be proactive. At one point of time, I thought meritocracy should be the way forward. I myself always fought on merits. But maybe I was lucky, didn't have discrimination in the family and or in my work environment, but that's not the case with all women. And if there is no legislative change, then you see that things move at their own pace. And one realizes that power sharing between men and women is extremely important for gender parity, and the importance of the perspectives of 50% of the population of the country cannot be ignored any longer, and therefore affirmative action is required to equalize opportunities on a fast-track basis and to improve the lives and dignity of women. And to bring parity, women have to lead from the front and have to be at the helm of organizations, institutions, and also politics. And I feel that the Women's Reservation Bill is a step in the right direction. The future will be much better with a woman at every table, and much more prosperous, I would say, with a woman at every table, where decisions are made. And it's important that women from across the world have to claim their spaces in leadership and decision-making. For example, today we know just 7.4% companies of the Fortune 500 companies are run by women. This needs to be changed. Today, it doesn't need to be emphasized that various researchers have suggested that gender parity leads to much better performance in all aspects and all levels. In fact, many reports on gender diversity in corporates have shown that whenever women are most strongly represented on boards or top management levels, these companies are also the ones that perform the best. And I'm sure this would hold true in every situation. And therefore, we need equal representation of women in boardrooms. Till women are not in equal proportion in the helm, gender parity within the organization cannot become a total reality. The mandate of the government to appoint one woman director encouraged women to join boards. I literally saw it in front of my eyes. They trained themselves, gained knowledge, and now are very comfortable as board members. It took a bit of time, it took a couple of years, but now they are very comfortable as board members. And so I personally feel that affirmative action and legislative policy can help achieve the objective much faster. And the effects of the change then reverberate across the ecosystem. In Scandinavian countries also, and many other countries you saw, for example, in the Scandinavian countries, women directorships on boards because of government mandate increased from 5% to 49%. The mandate is 50%. And because of this, it's proven that the governance in those countries and companies increased substantially. Therefore, creation of that pipeline for women leaders becomes extremely important. It is only when women are placed at the top decision-making levels can they take effective steps to make society more gender neutral and progressive. And for this, the government, the industry, the society, all three have to proactively make this happen. Certain listed companies today have to mandatorily follow the ESG principles, and ESG includes also the S, the social part, which includes gender parity at all levels, be it employees, vendors, partners, etc. The Sustainable Development Goals, and I must say, are becoming a critical priority for investors at the national and global level, and they're keenly looking at corporates following these practices, reporting them. There is also increased focus on sustainability investing, and these are manifesting in their investment decisions. As we all know, that majority of the countries that had been successful in containing the fight against COVID-19 and responding to the socio-economic impacts were headed by women. And this was widely recognized that women were at the forefront and have been decisive, effective, and compassionate in their response to COVID-19. But today, if you talk about heads of states and governments, there are hardly 20 or 22 countries worldwide where females head the governments. In fact, India, I would say, was one of the first countries to witness the power of decisive leadership. In the 1980s, we had our first female prime minister. In fact, USA, after 243 years of independence, got its first female vice president. I remember when I started my career as a professional several years back, there were very few women in the ranks. But as women are getting educated, things are changing. When I did my SMTP training, there were hardly 3 or 4 women in a batch of 50. But today you have more than 50 or maybe 60% of the participants who are women. But the only thing is that those who pursue their career, you know, they get educated, but somewhere down the line, because of societal pressures and family pressures, they will have break in their careers. They find it difficult to come back and re-enter the profession. I would really urge these women to take advantage of online refresher training courses. Thanks to digital literacy, today things have become more easier for women, and they can train themselves, they can skill themselves in upcoming areas. There's so many new upcoming areas. And be in touch with the profession, network with people. This is to ensure that they get the confidence, and even potential employers get the confidence that they are capable and you know, to kind of be part of the organization after they've taken break to nurture their families. And to promote inclusive leadership, it's also important for organizations to have gender-friendly work practices and rethink and redesign their workplaces. Including allowing women to work from home post their maternity leave, at least for some periods of time. You know, all this becomes very critical to encourage women to come back to their careers. And I would say there are a lot of men here today. In fact, I find more men than women here today. That's a wonderful feeling. So men too have to play a very active role. You know, men have to have the courage to grant equality. So men too also have to play a very active role in supporting women. The concept of shared responsibility, that is equal sharing of unpaid care and domestic work, will slowly become the accepted norms and define relationships across the globe. You know, women's leadership is a vision to be embraced, claimed, and internalized by women. Just like slight seismic change, shifts can cause earthquakes, slight shifts in their thought process can reveal how women are more than capable of leading from the front. I strongly feel that women also need to be strong, passionate, bold. Men and women are equals when it comes to intellect and should have an equal space in society where both of them can achieve their full potential. And this needs to percolate to all aspects of life. Historically, women were conditioned to accept secondary positions. But as time and society have progressed, we find the Generation Y, the Generation Z, and now the Alpha generation, you know, the youngsters are bringing exponential changes because of their thought process. The younger generation of women today has a different mindset, is educated, becoming economically empowered. They're fearless, knowledgeable, self-confident, and are not accepting any barriers that society has created for them. And consequently, they are more assertive and are demanding equality in every aspect of their lives, and this is where the real change is manifesting. They are not prepared to accept inequality, be it jobs, remuneration, relationships. And I think all this will have a very domino effect on the society, and I sincerely believe that these generational changes will be the biggest harbingers of change. Success has to be defined by attributes, not anatomy. And finally, I always believe it's your perseverance, passion, hard work, commitment, leadership skill, a willingness to take on additional responsibilities, and most critically, our positive attitude, our adaptability quotient, which really defines our level of success. Facing challenges with ingenuity and determination, having a solution-oriented approach are keys to becoming successful. A very inspiring quote, you know, by Anais Nin says, "Life shrinks and expands in proportion to one's courage. And it is time for women to become courageous and take full control of their lives." We can take inspiration from so many courageous women. In 2021, we had crowned, you know, the crowned Miss Femina India, who became Miss Universe, whose story, she was the daughter of an auto rickshaw driver, was so inspiring. This just shows that, this just shows that female empowerment is reaching to the last common denominator. And there are so many such examples which you find, and thanks to social media, they're all over. Technological changes have also thrown open new possibilities for women. for growth and new avenues of leadership. It's easier for women to network and realize their full potential. Today, as a society, we stand on the cusp of an exponential change. The 21st century is the age of converging technologies. You have artificial intelligence, robotics, virtual reality, blockchain, Neuralink, STEM. They're redefining everything. And I think this is a brilliant time for women leaders of the future, to make a mark for themselves. Innovation and technology are changing the landscape, and it's very important that women also script the impact of these technologies. In fact, technology is a great leveler right from mobiles to AI. AI is currently operating, but the problem is that AI is currently operating from existing traditional data which is fed in, which bias influences the design and technology. We need to change that. We need to ensure that the biases do not perpetuate, and therefore, it is essential that women's ideas, creativity, and experiences equally influence the algorithms, the design, the application of the innovations, and shape and define the societies of the future. Women have to play a key role in defining the governance framework, ethics, bias, the opportunities, and the challenge faced by each of these disruptive technologies, futuristic industries, I would say. In fact, from across the spectrum, we must have more women leaders who really influence the future. As I mentioned earlier, the generational changes will be the key catalyst in the rate of progressive change, and the future will be led by the alpha generation, which will script the trajectory, I would say, of their own version of a progressive, gender-neutral world, supported by technology. Today, we stand on the curve of an exponential future, and I sincerely believe the two factors that will drive this exponential change will be technology and women. I think I'll end here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, CS Preeti Malhotra. I would now request, we would take up, we have a few questions, we have received a few questions, and I would like to take the questions up later after the initial deliberations. So is that okay? Yeah. Okay, so thank you very much. And Ms. Sweta Agarwal, IAS, I would request you to, enlighten us with your experience and your, words on that particular topic, and I'm really waiting to hear from you. And she is a voracious speaker, a very different experience from what we have experienced, and those who were there in the national conference, women's conference in Calcutta have already heard her, and she has such a good experience and learning to share, from which we also can take a lot of learning for our own institute and our own professional areas. So the mic is all yours.
Thank you so much. I'll just stand. I'll not go to the dais because I am blessed with a very good height. And I'm not going to be sitting there because I'm blessed with such a good height that my feet zameen pe nahi ja rahe. So I was a little uncomfortable there, and I'm more comfortable this way. So a very good morning, everyone. I'm Sweta Agarwal. I'm an IAS officer of 2016 batch, born on West Bengal cadre. Currently, I'm posted as Additional District Magistrate, Purba Bardhaman. First of all, I would really like to thank ICSI. This is my third collaboration with them, and now I feel it's part of my extended family. So I really look forward to meeting all of you whenever I get an invitation from you people. So thank you so much. Ma'am, thank you for the enlightening lecture, and my sincere gratitude to the moderator here. So I'll give you, as Rupanjana madam stated, I'll give you a different perspective. Most of you, or probably all of you sitting here, belong to the corporate world. A world which is very opaque for me. I don't understand anything of your world right now. I will give you a glimpse of my world. The world of government, the world of governance, the world wherein I get an opportunity to work with the grassroots level, at the cutting edge level. Being a civil servant gives me a unique opportunity. if I have to state it in one sentence, I would say I have the power to empower. That is how I define my role. Now, I already mentioned that I'm a 2016 badge officer, put in 2 years of training, so I effectively started my career in 2018. In these 5 years of, like, it's a very short career span, I have seen many firsts. So my first posting was as sub-divisional officer and sub-divisional magistrate in Rampur Hat, which is in the Birbhum district of West Bengal. And in its 100 years history, I was the first female SDM of that subdivision. I was stunned. So I don't know how many of you visited the offices or the office chambers of district magistrates and district collectors or SDOs. I don't know if you visited. I'll give you how I realized I was the first female. So we generally have a board. Wherever we sit in our chambers, we have a board wherein all the names and the tenures of all our predecessors are mentioned. So when I entered the office and I saw that the board starts with 1924. So the first person was not even an IAS officer. He was an ICS officer. ICS was basically the predecessor of IAS, like pre-independence era. So I had such illustrious predecessors, but I was very sad to see that in its almost 100 years history, not even a single woman donned that seat. But then, I took it as a challenge. I thought, history has chosen, you like to boost yourself by saying big, big words to yourself. So I chose to boost my courage and morale by saying, history has chosen me for this role. So I'm going to leave a mark. Fast forward to another 2 years, I joined as additional district collector and magistrate of Zilla Parishad. Again, Zilla Parishad, so we have the 3-tier Panchayati Raj system, the Gram Panchayat level. It's across the state, across the country. Gram Panchayat, Panchayat Samiti, and Zilla Parishad. So Zilla Parishad is the highest tier of Panchayati, local self-government in the rural areas. So I was ADM Zilla Parishad, Purba Mednipur. Purba Mednipur is the 3rd biggest district in the state of West Bengal with more than 200 Gram Panchayats. So I have a huge rural population. And again, I was very sorry to see that in its more than 50 years of history, I was the first female ADM Zilla Parishad, because it is basically, I'll give you the rationale behind it. So Zilla Parishad of Purba Mednipur has a budget of more or less 200 crores. And if I have to make you understand in your terminology, Bangla jake bole pati bhasha hai, as in, mota moti, I was running a company of 200 crores. So they never somehow trusted a woman with that role. But again, that historical role fell on me. In Zilla Parishad, what I used to do was to ensure that since I'm running a 200 crore company and I'm building a lot of social, like rural infrastructure, I'm building roads, I'm building guard walls, I'm building a lot of stuff. So I have to ensure that the quality, the quality standards are maintained. So I used to go on regular field visits. One day, I will specifically take this opportunity to mention that moment here, because it will corroborate what moderator madam and Preeti madam had said earlier. I was measuring a road. I just saw, so in rural areas, in deep villages down there. So whenever a sarkari gadi comes, sarkari vehicle comes, and an officer gets down and starts measuring the road. So I'm surrounded by all my security officers and everyone. I just, so villagers gather to see what is happening. It's like a spectacle for them. And then if they have to, air their grievances, this road is not done properly, this construction material is not well, blah, blah. So that is the opportunity they get to air their grievance. I noticed one girl. She had just returned from school, so she was wearing the school uniform, which was a sari. The girl, again, because I'm so used to speaking in Bangla, only the Bangla words are coming to my mind. Uska bahut meetha sa chehra tha. She was a very sweet-looking young girl. Looking at her, I must have thought she must be hardly 13, 14, maximum 15. I got mesmerized. After a second, I noticed something else. Sindoor. And I was shocked. I was shocked. And then I realized I am part of a district wherein, or rather, I'm part of an ecosystem wherein, on one hand, we worship Durga, we worship Shakti, we worship Kali, we worship Chandika, all the forms of Shakti. And on the other hand, around 40% of my girls get married below the age of 18. This was a very, very shocking and very rula dene wala, moment for me. Now, you may ask what I did after finding that out. Because, as I said in the very beginning, I have the power to empower. So I could have gotten hold of that girl. I could have gone to her parents. I could have gotten the marriage annulled. I could have done a lot of things. What did I do? Nothing. I didn't do anything. You may ask why. All the steps that I mentioned, I realized it will take me probably, a few hours to do all of that. But then I'll leave that village and go away. What will happen to that girl? What will happen to her parents? How the society will treat her? How her own peers will treat her? All these thoughts, because I am not going to be there to protect her all the time. And this is not a one-off case ki I can, somehow manage to protect her and do everything for her. As I said, 40% of my girls are getting married. So I'm just not talking about one Lakshmi or one Shakti or one Durga who's being treated like this. I'm talking about 40% of my women who are being treated like this. So what do? I didn't do anything. Until date, I'm very shameful. I mean, I feel a lot of shame because of that. That is when I realized that we talk about women development, we talk about women empowerment, we talk about everything related to women. But that basic thing, that change in the mindset, which is required, which somehow even education or literacy is also not being able to see through. I'll again give you a figure. My district is one of the most literate districts in the state and in the country. Yet, on the other hand, this kind of a social evil is also existing there, and in such major numbers. So what I'm trying to harp on with this example is that it is not enough to just educate. It is not educate. It is not just enough to make girls and boys literate. It is important to educate them. There's a difference. क ख ग घ ABCD पढ़ा के आप उनको literate करते हैं, आप उनको educate नहीं करते हैं. Education does not need literacy mandatorily. Education needs wisdom. It needs a change in the mindset, which I'm very sorry to say exists even in the most so-called literate and educated households. I have seen people wherein, entire family of bureaucrats. I am a bureaucrat myself. Entire family of bureaucrats is there, but patriarchy, if not in the manifest form, but in the latent form, exists. Very recently, I am very happy to share with all of you, I was nominated as one of the top 5 female bureaucrats in the country by Economic Times Prime across hierarchies. So when I went to attend their function in Mumbai, so the lady, it was a complete corporate sector event, and governance category was introduced only this year. So this lady who won the HR award of the year, when she was asked to speak, she made a very interesting statement which I would like to share with you because it will resonate with all of you. So now I will shift to this theme, women development versus women-led development. She said that if you really want more women, both in the workforce as well as in the leadership areas, in the leadership fields, you need to concentrate on 4 M's. What are those 4 M's? Mobility, marriage, maternity, and menopause. I found this very interesting. Even in the government, even in my service, where I am a permanent officer, at least I know that Sarkar will not fire me. So even there, when it comes to mobility, when it comes to marriage, when it comes to maternity, and when it comes to menopause, I have been given equal pay parity with my fellow colleagues. That is one thing the government has ensured. That's a big step. But the disproportionate burden always falls on a woman. In the corporate sector, I'm sure you will realize this more. Because whenever there is a chance of a mobility for the husband, many a times I've seen, even in my own family, when I've seen, my cousins, my husband and wife, both are working, husband's decision gets carried forward, and the woman is more or less said, ki bhai accept kar lo, and you just take a back seat, or you talk to your bosses and try and get a posting there. Her career, her ambitions, her needs, her desires, they are not even thought of. Maternity. Whenever we conceive, whenever we become pregnant, and at the same time we have to deliver, not enough policies exist at any level to make the environment healthy for the woman. She's made, many a times I have seen, she's made to feel that she's become a burden. Kal tak, jo team ki leader thi, wo aaj achanak se, now all of a sudden she's become a burden because she's become pregnant. This is not correct. Someone somewhere became pregnant, that is why all of us are sitting here. You have to realize that, right? So imagine what wonders we can do if we, take into account these small things. It might be small for you, but it is not small for the woman who is going through this phase. I face, in my service, so whenever we conceive, we get transferred. We don't get field postings because field postings are a little hectic. And we get transferred to the secretariat. Many a times it happens that the transfer is done with no consideration to the trimester of the woman in which she is finding herself. I'm sure in corporate sector also, many companies do not have such considerations. When a woman comes back from the maternity leave, she is expected to hit the ground running, which is correct, which is a correct expectation. But you have to understand what she has gone through just a few months back and what she is going through right now. On one hand, she is expected to deliver at her workplace, and on the other hand, she's also expected to multitask at home and ensure that her toddler is good, her infant is taken care of. How many of you have taken paternity leave? How many of you? I'm sure very few of you. In government, we hardly have a concept of paternity leave. Hardly. And those who take it, they take it because they want some other leave and they can't take it that way, hence they take paternity leave. See, I am not saying these things to demean anyone. I am just trying to say that if we don't change our own mindset, no matter how many Shwetas and how many Preetis come and give here a lecture on women development, women-led development, development is not going to happen. It is not going to happen. It has to start from our own homes. It has to start from us. We have to understand what we need to do to, make that small change. I'll give you one more example, which I have faced many a times at my workplace. So women are termed as emotional, and that is seen in a very negative light. I have never understood why. Why? Emotions are very natural. If you are a human, you will be emotional. So then why is emoting seen negatively in women? Whereas the same thing seen in men is the same thing in men, albeit in a different form, is not taken wrongly. A man can get angry. A man can use parliamentary words. A man can say all of that and get away with it. A woman can't. A woman can't cry. A woman can't get angry or is not supposed to get angry. And Bhagwan na kare if she uses some parliamentary words. Parliamentary, unparliamentary, I'll leave it to your discretion. So what I'm trying to say is, if you're talking about parity, you have to see, after so many years of independence, the manifest form, so what I'm trying to say is, I'm trying to draw a difference between the manifest and latent forms. So in sociology, you have a concept. Everything has a manifest function and a latent function. In the raw form of patriarchy, we have really progressed a lot. But these latent forms which affects you and me, there we have not progressed much. I am a person who carries my heart on my sleeves. I love to enjoy. I love to sing, I love to dance, I love to do whatever I can which makes me happy. When my male counterpart does it, it is okay. But I have to present myself in a proper way. What that proper way is, God alone knows. And I'm sure many of you face this in your daily lives. So what I'm trying to say is, we have till now concentrated on women development. Now, of course, the narrative is changing. It's coming to women-led development. We need women in the leadership roles. But in order for women to perform well in the leadership roles, the narrative also has to shift from how we have been thinking till now to what we how we need to think now in order to see and respect a woman in a leadership role. So when I took up ADM Zilla Parishad ka position in Purba Mednipur, all my engineers are men. They were not able to accept me in the first 2 months. They were not. I'm not an engineer. I'm a woman. छोटी सी बच्ची आके हम पे क्या हुक्म चलाएगी? That was the image I carried in the first month of my joining there. वो छोटी सी बच्ची dynamite निकल सकती है, वो अलग चीज़ है. That is different. But having said that, that is the image. Why? Whenever a man sits on that position, these thoughts don't come. So we need to change the way we think, the way we act. सिर्फ डिग्रियां लेकर, only by acquiring degrees, by becoming, getting PhD degree, master's degree, double master's degree, nothing is going to happen unless our mindset does not change. And mindset has to change from here, from within. You have to take up that responsibility of changing your own mindset, because only when you're able to do that, will you be able to support another woman who is going through one of the 4 M's around you, the 4 M's that I mentioned. And only then you would have played a positive role in ensuring that women around you get their rights, get their due places. I have a lot to say. I'll be sharing it during, say, the question-answer session. Right now, I would want to, end here. And I really hope that you will also come up with some good, interesting questions, which both ma'am and I would would love to answer. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It is always a pleasure to listen to you. I can see a few hands coming up, and we have also received a few questions earlier. So do we think we take up those questions? Okay. So can we just quickly go through the questions that we have already received earlier, and then I can take up the questions from the audience. Is that okay? Yeah. Thank you so much. So I would first like to ask you, Preeti ma'am. So as the first president, actually we keep on, we are very proud of that fact, and I'm sure you equally are, and you started quite early, so giving us the lead. So as the first women president of ICSI, can you share some key milestones and the challenges that you encountered in your journey of leadership? What advice would you give to young women CS and who aspire to follow in your footsteps and reach the leadership positions?
Thank you. Son, can you hear? Is it audible? Okay, great, wonderful. It was a long journey at the Institute. It started in the 1980s when I contested for the regional council elections uh, and then got elected as office bearer, treasurer, secretary, vice chairman, chairman. I became the chairman. I became the first woman chairman um, in any regional council in 2002. Obviously, all along the way, there are multiple challenges. I remember 2002 was a year where I was the chairman. Naturally, you want to give your best. My father also died of cancer that year, and I remember daytime I used to be working in office at the NRC, and in the night I used to be at the hospital. So, I think women are the ones who can multitask and do this all the time. Then after that, of course, I stood for the Central Council elections. Again, a 4-year term. At the end of the 4th year, I became the vice president, and then recontested the elections to become the president. Now again, here what I saw was that while of course one kind of gets support from women obviously support you all the way, and men too support you all the way. And there are always those 5% who try to dissuade you. They try to tell people that you want a woman to be your president. But women should never get dissuaded. I think it's important that finally, end of the day, I think for any person to be successful, it's your hard work, perseverance, commitment, like I mentioned, your positive attitude. And when people talk like that, it probably persuades you to perform better and achieve your objectives. And in fact, when I did become the president in 2007, again, it was a very challenging year because you're the president again, you want to give your best. I remember that year we had the IPO of our own company, the group that I was overseeing, and we had I remember the telecom. At that time I was director and company secretary of Spice Telecom. In fact, one very good thing also is that, that willingness amongst the youngsters, since there are a lot of youngsters here, you should always be willing to take on additional responsibilities, never shirk from that. I mean, that always kinds of, be successful and also positions you much better in the organization. I remember right from the beginning, it was never just a company secretary, though I was overseeing the governance for the group, but I was always director and company secretary in any company. And that was because I was willing to take on all challenges and all additional responsibilities, and then, of course, later on become the chairman of the group. But, so 2007, again, a very challenging year. I remember the Companies Act. I got elected to the Irani committee somewhere for making the new Companies Act in 2005. So one had to, literally be sitting in the MC office, working towards the secretarial audit, compliance audit, KMPs, and all those provisions that we wanted in the Companies Act. I mean, all of us from ICSI used to be sitting in the MC office. So it was, again, multiple, you had to manage office, this, presidentship. So the challenges will always be there, multitask, look at your own family responsibilities. So the way forward is always multitasking, and we were lucky. I was the first woman president in 2007, and of course we then had Mamta Binani after I think about 10 years, and now we have Rupanjana Dey. She's the only woman council member, and I do hope she becomes a president also sometime soon. And today we don't have, in fact, the ICAI and the ICWI still don't have a woman president till today.
And they're older institutes.
And they are much older institutes, exactly, they are much older institutes. So, so I think so end of the day, it's just, your focus, your confidence, which takes you forward. Of course, the support of your family is extremely important. Work environment again, and therefore, but obviously today women are far more assertive, far more, far more equal in their approach. They're not willing to take on, whether it's relationships, whether it's about equal pay, promotions, they fight their way out. So that's good. We find the new generation, which will probably lead the way to gender parity. Thanks.
Thank you so much. That was so well articulated. So I really, the message has been very, aptly sent to all. But I just want to mention one thing, that the underlying fact is also that women also need to maintain a good health and have great energy and enthusiasm levels to be able to do what ma'am is suggesting. So I would I have a question for you. India's G20 presidency has shifted the focus for the first time from women's development to women-led development, as you mentioned already. How do you see this shift as an enabler for larger participation of women in leadership roles?
Correct. So I've already mentioned in my speech here, like the narrative till now, especially in the government, was about development of women or empowerment of women. So I'll give you a small example. If you look at the government schemes in the health sector, so most of the government schemes in the health sector are centered around the reproductive health of the women and child care, most of them. Similarly, in other fields also, in other rural development schemes also, our idea is when we talk about SHGs, the self-help group movement or things like that, the idea is that we will develop the women, we will empower the women. But this is probably the first time that the narrative is going through a shift, and it is shifting from development of the women to development by the women. Women-led development. So what I understand from this shifted narrative is, or the change in narrative is, that we want a development which is of the women, by the women, and for the women. So this change is a very welcome change. I really hope that in future, both in the corporate as well as in the government fields, we will be able to see more women in the leadership positions. And I was reading somewhere, there's a report, there's a survey by McKinsey which says that at least in the corporate sector, for every 10% increase in gender diversity in the senior managerial posts or very senior posts, the earnings of that company, it somehow increases by more than 3.5%. So there is a positive correlation between more women in the leadership roles, and it has a positive link with the earnings of the company. So though I do not understand, there were a lot of terminology, EBIT, वो सब मुझे नहीं आता, but what I understood is, what I drew, the inference I drew from it is, you have more women on your boards, you have more women in senior leadership positions, and your company is going to flourish. And the same analogy is also applicable in the government sector. You have more women as district magistrates, you have more women as superintendents of police. I repeat, if you have more women as SPs in districts, if you have more women secretaries in different governments, in Government to India, in the various state governments, the kind of perspective that they bring to the table is totally different and very innovative. So this shift in narrative is very welcome, and I really hope in future we'll be seeing more of them.
Thank you very much, and very well put into that answer. And so I would go ahead with my next question to Preeti ji. India has seen an increase in the representation of women in corporate boards in the recent years. Can you provide your insight on this progress and the significance for it in the corporate sector?
Thanks.
You have already shed some light on it.
I have, yeah, because thanks to the affirmative action that took place in having at least one woman director, we saw a phenomenal increase in the interest of women joining boards. I could see that previously they didn't have the confidence, but they trained themselves, they skilled themselves, they gained knowledge, and now they're very comfortable as board members, and people are looking out for good women board members today. So, to give that push, and like I mentioned, to fast track the whole process, it's important. Maybe it's one woman director, probably it should be 1/3 women, like we have in the Women's Reservation Bill. That will encourage even more women to join boards. And obviously it's a given that, and there are various studies that have proved that gender parity leads to better performance. That's what all of us have spoken about. And there are examples in many countries, and I mentioned the Scandinavian countries too, where a shift of women from 5% to 49% substantially improved the performance in those companies, and those corporations progressed much better. And many of these countries are moving from 1/3 to 50% women directorship, and I think that's the way forward to at least to kind of progress this much faster. Otherwise, it'll take its own pace and time. So legislative policy, I think, plays a big role.
Thank you very much. Taking a cue from that, I have a question for you. how does the enactment of Nari Shakti Vandan Act, according to you, how will it unleash a new era of inclusive governance, undoing major hindrance in the participation of women in policy and lawmaking? So your views on that, please.
Yeah, so this Women Reservations Bill, I think it was first introduced in the late 90s. And probably after almost 3 decades, we have finally seen some positive step in that direction. Right now, I think we have 78 female parliamentarians, which is less than 15%. This bill, when it becomes an act, will have the ability to raise that figure from 78 to 181. So definitely 181 will be a strength, will be a force to reckon with. But here, I would like to sound a word of caution. We have 20 states in India who already have 50% reservation in PRIs out of the 28 states. So my experience working with the PRI members at the grassroots level is that many a times, not always, but many a times, even though the seat is reserved for a woman, it basically becomes a proxy for the male member of the family. I just hope and pray that the Women Reservations Bill, when it gets implemented, if we don't have a clear timeline on its implementation, it is definitely not getting implemented before the 2024 parliamentary elections. But whenever it gets implemented, it does not meet a similar fate. This is my real hope, because at the end of the day, if as a bureaucrat or as an administrator, you have to work with the male member. So I keep giving this example of Panchayat web series. So wahan pe Manju Devi was the Pradhan, but ultimately Pradhan Sahab was her husband. So I really hope and pray that this does not happen with the Women Reservation Bill also. But having said that, it is definitely a huge, huge step forward. And if we are able to achieve the objectives with which this bill is being seen through, then we would have witnessed a revolution.
Thank you very much. We are running short of time. I just have 2 questions from my side to the 2 panelists, and then we'll take a few questions from the audience and we'll wrap up. So, Preeti ji, your question to you, what role does innovative technologies and digital inclusion play in advancing women-led development initiatives, and how can these be leveraged effectively in the corporate world?
I think, digital inclusion has been a boon for women. And we saw that during COVID-19 too. Women from home, women who could not previously work, started skilling themselves, educating themselves, have mentoring sessions, networking sessions. Especially women entrepreneurs can get access to capital, access to markets, access to vendors. And similarly, and for corporations, some women can work, a lot of women did work remotely. So on all fronts, I think, and again, it's important for corporations, like I mentioned, for getting more women workforce participation to provide flexi working arrangements, remote working. So naturally, digital inclusion plays a big role in making that happen.
Thank you very much. So the last question from my side to you is, how can cultural and societal norms be shifted to better support women's leadership and development, and what role does education play in this transformation?
I think I've more or less touched on it during my speech, but I would just like to continue with what Preeti ma'am said regarding COVID-19 and the role of women in COVID-19. Actually, I would want to speak on that because I have had an amazing experience during the the first and the second and the third phases of COVID-19, and I have seen that witnessed it firsthand how women have played a major role and have helped the administration in tackling it. I'll give you one small example. So in January 2021, the COVID vaccine was launched, if you all remember. The COVID vaccine was launched throughout the country. I think it was 16th January 2021. And do you know, across the country, first phase of vaccination was given to the healthcare workers, to the administrators, to the police, and that category of citizens. And after that, when it was opened up for the rest of the population, do you know across the country which workforce we majorly utilized for this purpose? Across the country, across the states. It's the Ashas. It's the Ashas. Our Asha Didis, and why I call them Didis, because Asha, only women can become Ashas. Our Asha Didis took on the Herculean task of reaching out to every person, every eligible person in the remotest corners of the country, spreading the message of why COVID vaccination is important, why you should go to the nearest sub-center and get yourself vaccinated for free. And I'm telling you, I have coincidentally been the ADM health in all my positions. So I have managed the health of Birbhum, I have managed the health of Dakshin Dinajpur, I have managed the health scenario of Purba Medipur, and now I'm managing the health scenario of Purba Bardhaman. Trust me when I say that if our Ashas wouldn't have been here, many more of us would have been affected by COVID. And they did it without sparing a thought for their own safety. Because at that time, they reached out, they went from house to house, knocked at doors, many a times they faced humiliation. They've done everything in their capacity to spread the word of COVID vaccination. So this is what women can do. We all have, women mainly have this thing of sacrificing, the natural instinct of sacrificing themselves. I witnessed it firsthand when my Ashas, they delivered this, selfless service for the society. So I couldn't have actually, not mentioned this when ma'am mentioned COVID-19. Ye mujhe bolna hi tha. So having said that, on the culture, on your question, I would not like to repeat what I have already said. I have already said that we need to change our mindset. We just don't need to be literates. We need to be educated. Because only when we are educated in the truest sense of the term, and only when we are wise enough to understand that, women need to be given their due respect, and the roles they play in our lives, in our society, they need to be respected. Only then probably the real change will happen. And that has to start from our own selves. Charity has to begin at home. But this is not charity that we are talking about. This is a change in mindset. We have to start thinking like this right from our own homes, and men, not when you become fathers to daughters. Most of the changes I've seen in men, when उनके बेटी होती है, तब उनको समझ आता है कि when, अब मेरी बेटी के साथ अगर ऐसा हुआ तो मुझे कैसा लगेगा as a father. So men, I really request you, start this change right now. Do some introspection. Understand where it is you can, take that small step to make the work environment a little more comfortable for your female colleagues, a little more inclusive, a little more, encouraging, a little more motivating. See, I have said this time and again on every forum I say, though I started my lecture by saying that I have the power to empower as a bureaucrat, I really feel women don't need empowerment. We are empowered enough. I really feel that. What we need is an inclusive environment wherein we are not deliberately excluded by following certain practices. I had worked in Deloitte previously for a year before quitting my job and coming applying for the civil services. So in the corporate sector, I don't know how much of it is true. I'm talking about 10 years back, 12 years back. So I used to hear from my colleagues that most of the important decisions are taken over breaks. not in the boardrooms, over breaks. I really don't know how much of it is true right now, so please don't, hold me responsible or for what I'm saying. I'm just talking about my experience. So many a times I have seen that women are excluded from these breaks because of certain things. Make your practices inclusive. ऐसी practice ही मत करो जहाँ पे your woman colleague is not comfortable joining you. And that responsibility is with you. That responsibility lies with you. And then do not put the blame on the woman for not participating in your conversations. It's a vicious circle I have seen. So I would, so these are the shifts in the mindset I'm referring to. I really hope that I have not touched on sore spots of anyone, but I have just shared my experiences. Thank you.
I think just to add on, women are definitely not vulnerable. They just need the opportunities. Just one point I wanted to add on is I think, career intentionality for girls should be introduced probably right from the school itself. It's very important to, for parents and for teachers to, make them dream and make them pursue their careers, make them feel that they have to be bread earners also, and make them decision makers. What you find, earlier at least, I mean, now obviously things have changed a bit, but in smaller towns, villages, the parents, one female children are born, they're, what they tell their girl child is more about marriage than about pursuing careers.
Yes.
So even if they educate them maybe till a certain level, but after that it's more marriage and not career. So first it's important for parents to make them economically empowered, and then let them have a choice of what they want to do in future.
Ma'am, a very good point. Just one more second. I cannot finish because ma'am has actually touched upon a very important point. So growing up in the 90s, I was exposed to all sort of major media channels showing कि एक लड़की का ultimate सपना शादी होता है. This is how, so all of you who are 90s and 80s born people, I'm sure you have seen such serials and such movies wherein the portrayal of a woman and the woman's biggest desire is marriage. Now, of course, the narrative is changing, but the damage that had needed to be done was done. So change that narrative. That narrative needs to be changed. Women are just not made for marriage. A woman can choose not to be married. A woman can choose not to be a mother. It's a matter of choice. It's a matter of choice. So these narratives need to change, and these have to happen from here, from your own self. Thank you.
I wanted to add something here because taking cue from what you mentioned, that you were quite lucky at family and work both. So in my personal experience, I was really very lucky in the family front, but not really in the work front. Work in the sense like I was forced to resign from my job by a woman boss when I was pregnant. So that is a very, very bad experience I have had in my life, and wherever I'm given the opportunity to speak, I say that this should not happen to anyone. So as for family front, growing up, I never got the feeling that men and women are different. So I'm really lucky in that. So I was born in a very remote village in Tripura. So and my grandfather, he was a doctor, and because he was the most educated person in the entire village, so he was made the sarpanch. I don't know what pradhan. So I'm actually, when I listen to that story from you, I want to see, I have experienced the other way around. So he was made the pradhan, but he didn't have the time nor the interest in these kind of work. And my grandmother, she was up for it. She would enjoy it. So she would visit from home to home in the village, and she would ask people's problems. So what is your problem? What do you want to be solved and all that? And I was so lucky because I was pretty close to my grandmother. I was lucky to have accompanied her across the village tours, and she was a 1905 born woman. So born in 1905, I was about 6-7 years old then, and she would go from home to home, then come back home, put in her own comments and opinions, give it to my grandfather, and then my grandfather was actually solved those matters. So this is a very good beginning that I had, and actually, some things like that, if you grow up like that, if it is there in the DNA of the family, you really don't grow up thinking that, women are different and women are not empowered. And similarly, when my mother, she was nominated for the President's Award as a teacher, But she refused, saying that, teaching is my job and I'm getting paid for it. I don't need a president award. So she had the guts to refuse. So, sometimes it is there in the DNA of the family, but sometimes some people are not that lucky, I know. Because, I come across often, comments like this, like when I cut short my hair, I had a few of my CS members from Calcutta said, "Ma'am, aapko permission mil gaya?" I said, "What permission? This is my hair. Why? Who would give me permission to cut my hair?" I said, "हमारे तो सास तो गुस्सा हो जाती है, 1 इंच भी कट करना होगा तो सास का permission नहीं मिलता है." So I said, like you rightly said, it should be internalized. I have been looking for this word, although I was a student of economics and I never really could, associate this word to the women empowerment you've rightly associated with. We are already empowered and it has to be actually internalized, and like you rightly say.
Yeah.
That change should start at oneself. So I would come back for the concluding remarks, but I must take a question. That gentleman is out there. Please, yes. Can you please introduce yourself first?
Yeah, ma'am. Good morning. I'm Rakesh Kumar, Company Secretary, Star Union Daiichi Life Insurance Company Limited from Mumbai. I understand that women in metro and women in village have the different condition altogether. I can connect with Sweta ma'am in this regard, because she has worked in the village and she understands that. I have being as a company secretary, I have the additional responsibility of CSR. So I can connect how the metro women are privileged and what is the condition of women in the village. If I talk about in my office, I have, out of 4 members, 3 are women. One is Sweta Agarwal, fortunately. And she is also from the West Bengal. And third good thing is that you was talking about the maternity, post-maternity leave and all. My company gives this opportunity to women. She is for last 4 years doing work from home. So this is the another privilege she has, because she is metro, working with the corporate. But in the other side of this, ma'am, you was talking about you have power to empower the people. I am working in the CSR in the very remote area of Maharashtra in Marathwada region in Jalna district. There, ma'am, Preeti ma'am was saying 46-49% of women are sarpanch right now as per the record. But actually, that is only on record. Women are sarpanch, but actually they are not leading that village. Because once I visited, I'm not from the village, so first time I visited to village, I was trying to find out, the people came and he was saying he was sarpanch. Finally, I came to know he is not a sarpanch, some women is sarpanch. And we are working in the 5 villages, and all 5 villages are the same condition. Women are sarpanch, but not led by the sarpanch. So ma'am, Sweta ma'am, just try to understand from your side that how you can empower those women to come forward and to act as a sarpanch, not as a stamp paper. So thank you.
So this is the shift, the last question ma'am asked, no, the cultural shift, the shift in the narrative, internalization of the women empowerment. See, these things are lacking. That is the reason why. In fact, I also mentioned when the question on women's reservation bill was asked to me, I also mentioned that 20 out of 28 states in India have 50% reservation for women in PRI bodies. But from my experience, I've seen most of them are proxies. So you are also mentioning a similar thing. So here is where that shift in the narrative, that internalization of the fact that I am not the pradhan, it's my wife who is the pradhan, and I need to take a step back, and she needs to assert her authority. So this is a long-term change. It can't happen in a day, because it requires change in behavior. It requires change in a set culture. It requires breaking of existing norms. It requires a silent revolution. But at officers level,
A memento to our speaker, Ms. Sweta Agarwal, from Ms. Company Secretary, Kala V. Thank you, ma'am. I now request CS Vineet Chaudhary to please come on the dais and present a memento to our learned panelist, CS Preeti Malhotra. Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone. And this brings an end to our technical session. And now we have our next technical session shortly starting. Audience, please be seated. We are starting our next technical session. Please be seated. We have our panelists here and we are starting with our session. Would request all